Hello and welcome back to my channel, everyone. Today I will be covering part 2 of UFO sightings and alien encounters in the state of Texas. Shout out to Dominic Sean McCann for requesting it. Before we get into it, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment as it really helps my channel out and I really appreciate it. If you want to check out more of my paranormal videos, you can click the pop-up on the top right corner for a full playlist. And if you have your own paranormal encounters, UFO sightings, or any other kind of strange story, you can either share it in the comments, post on my subreddit, r/ihaveaspookystory, or send it to my story submission email, pinkpossiblystories@gmail.com. Maybe your story will be in a future video. So, with all that out of the way, let's dive into it. Driver spots flashing light over El Paso. January 19th, 1971. An El Paso motorist spotted Monday afternoon what might have been either a burning meteorite or a result of Army atmosphere experiments. Paul McEachern, 3006 Fort Boulevard, was driving west on Palm when he spotted a brilliant white light with bluish tinge on the outside appearing to be approaching the horizon east of El Paso. I saw it for 5 to 6 seconds as it come down, burning out sort of as it approached the horizon, McEachern said. Louis Scepter, air controller at El Paso International Airport Control Tower, said that the Army was conducting tests from a twin-engine aircraft in high-intensity lighting equipment. Official spokesman at Fort Bliss, however, reported that they were unaware of the tests being conducted Monday. Scepter added that the Army tests were to be conducted for the next 4 to 5 nights, possibly from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Martians visit Mart? This photo was snapped here last Sunday. From the Mart Herald, February 28, 1972. The accompanying photo was taken at about 8:30 Sunday morning by Les Roll of 217 North Emerson in Mart. Roll stated that at the time he looked from the front of his house facing east and saw something he had never seen before. He went back inside and grabbed his camera and took 2 pictures of an object, unidentifiable, hovering in the skies just to the east of his home. When he first saw the object, he thought it was just an airplane, or perhaps a helicopter. But then it started zigzagging across the sky. That's when he got the camera in action. Within seconds, he had taken 2 pictures, and as he prepared to get a third, the object flew away at a high rate of speed, he said. He described the object as having a metallic silver color on the bottom and a transparent dome on the top. Roll said the object made no sound. Roll estimated that the object was flying at between 12,000 and 15,000 feet above ground. He served in the U.S. Air Force and is knowledgeable on such estimations. He said he was alone when he sighted the object, and although he personally does not believe in flying saucers, that's certainly something to think about. Roll showed his pictures to several other Martians, as people in Mart are sometimes referred, and the word spread about town about as fast as the object had disappeared from overhead. The pictures were taken to Waco, where the news media assisted greatly in spreading the word around central Texas. By Monday morning, when the Waco News Tribune published the pictures on page 1, Roll became swamped with calls and visitors from around the state. He even had a call from Oklahoma City in regard to the object. A representative of the FBI in Waco showed up at Roll's door on Monday, as did Mr. Tommy Bland of Washington, D.C., who is with the National Investigating Committee on Aerial Phenomenon. Roll said his phone rang all day Monday and Monday evening. The Herald had a number of calls regarding the object seen here. 4 calls came from Dallas after a TV station there had made mention of the object seen over Mart. One of the callers was Dan Hernandez, a former Martite who sought information on the sighting. One call was from a radio station, and the others were individual callers. Skywatching became the favorite pastime here Monday and Tuesday. A drive down McLennan Avenue about 6 p.m. Tuesday found a dozen or more adults in their yards scanning the heavens, most of whom turned to other matters when caught gazing upwards. Tuesday also brought the Herald a call from Waco indicating that word there was that the object was something built in Rosebud to scout the 1972 Panther football team. And words from one of the Mart's elderly statesmen, name withheld, noted that the object couldn't have been much or it wouldn't have come to Mart. On Wednesday, there were other reports of sightings, one at Axtell and two near TSTI in Waco, none of which was confirmed by photo or announcements. An unconfirmed but widely mentioned item was that several people here reported power failures at about that time Sunday morning. Richardson youth followed by UFO. From the Dallas Morning News, September 23, 1972. Mrs. Ollie Irwin of Richardson has been Billy's mother for 18 years. She knows Billy pretty well. She can probably remember when he tracked mud in the house and brought many assorted and strange things home. But Mrs. Irwin was not prepared for what she claims Billy brought home Sunday morning. It looks like a star, but with a red haze, she said. Sunday morning, it came up in the front yard and got real big like a basketball. It follows Billy. Mrs. Irwin, her daughter, Billy, and some of his friends all claim to have seen the strange object. Their descriptions differ somewhat, but all agree the object, which they say is white with glittering red lights, follows Billy. Mrs. Irwin told her story. Sunday morning, the boys, Billy and friends, drove down to Sherman. When they came back, Billy was just scared to death. Sure, I saw it, Mrs. Irwin answered the obvious question. Up in the elements, it stays in one spot for a while and then starts to move. Mrs. Irwin was saying that the object had followed Billy for 3 nights and that one night she watched it dart after him when Billy and friends arrived. They believe me now, Billy said, panting. Billy had just left a local park where the object, he said, had threatened to land. See it right there, said Billy, pointing to the only light besides the moon in the sky. Over at the park, the thing got real close. We got out of there, offered one believer. Billy said that since the trip to Sherman, it won't follow anybody else for some reason. 2 nights ago, I was coming home from my girlfriend's, and it started following me on the tollway. I could see it out of the side mirror. Since discovery of his new companion, Billy's lifestyle has changed radically. I even got a haircut to disguise myself, he said. Appetites whetted, an unlikely entourage headed for the park. The light gradually moved away and became smaller. However, 2 more lights appeared. One light came closer. Tints of red became clearer. I ain't running this time, Billy said. The light dropped lower and made no noise. Soon it came close enough, and all agreed it was a jet headed for Love Field. Area UFO Report studied nationally. From the Dallas Times-Herald, September 26, 1972. Scientific researchers for MUFON confirmed Tuesday they are investigating the reported sighting of a UFO by at least 6 persons in Richardson. Dave Ozone of Dallas, MUFON investigator, told the Times-Herald he had interviewed an 18-year-old youth and 2 companions who say they saw the UFO while it was following their car on the night of September 17th. He returned home and told his family, who went outside, and also saw the object, Ozone said. They reported it to police and other agencies. The family, who have asked to remain anonymous because of crank calls, said they saw it on 3 separate occasions, Ozone said. They described it as a red, glowing, round object about the size of a basketball which hovered over the car and later around their home about 50 feet off the ground. Ozone declined to speculate on the origin of the UFO or what it might be. My report will go to MUFON headquarters, where it will be disseminated among the many scientists, astronomers, and researchers who are MUFON members studying the UFO phenomena. Another MUFON member said the Richardson sighting and description of the UFO closely paralleled hundreds of other sightings around the world, which have been classified as nocturnal lights. We are continuing to check the Richardson area, he added. Since 6 people have already told about this UFO sighting, we believe others may have also seen it but have not reported it because of fear of ridicule. Ozone said MUFON keeps the identity of UFO sighters anonymous if they request it. MUFON is a non-profit organization seriously interested in solving the mysteries of UFOs. And we have a growing staff in the Dallas area working on it from a scientific aspect, he said. Hovering UFO seen near Event. From the Herald News, August 24th, 1972. At least 5 people witnessed an unidentified flying object near Event nearly 3 weeks ago. They were reticent about telling the story for fear that other people would not believe them. According to Mrs. Allie Cunningham of Hamilton, the witnesses were Wesley Ray of Event, Mr. and Mrs. M.T. Smith of Abilene, and Mr. and Mrs. Jim Loudon of Event. Mrs. Smith and her husband were guests of her father, Mr. Ray, the weekend of August 5th, when the sighting was made. The Ray home is about 2 miles south of Event and about 1 mile east of US 281. Mr. and Mrs. Smith were sleeping on the porch at the Ray home that Saturday night. About midnight, she awoke and observed a bright flash of light on the door between the porch and Mr. Ray's bedroom. She shook her husband awake and called her father. Mr. Smith ran into the yard and called his wife and father-in-law to follow him. All of them saw the UFO, which they described as circular in shape, like a flying saucer, and bearing lights of bluish, pinkish, and reddish tints. The object seemed to hover near the house for about 5 minutes before moving off to the west, slowly at first and then picking up speed. They could not estimate the altitude of the object, but pointed out that it was low enough to cause the beam of light to traverse the porch to the inner door. About this time, just after midnight August 5th, Mr. and Mrs. Loudon were driving west from Event. They were attracted by an object in the sky moving parallel to their course. According to Mrs. Cunningham, they described the object the same way the Smiths and Mr. Ray did, making it likely that they were seeing the same phenomenon. Death of UFO pilot? Texas grave may hold space secret. From the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, March 23, 1973. Dallas. A team of unidentified flying objects investigators are combing a cemetery in the ghost town of Aurora in north-central Texas for the grave of a UFO pilot reportedly buried there, the Dallas Times-Herald said in its Sunday editions. The newspaper said Hayden Hughes, director of the International UFO Bureau in Oklahoma City, confirmed that scientists are searching the abandoned weed-covered cemetery for the spaceship pilot's grave. Hughes told the newspaper the search was prompted by newspaper reports of April 1897 that a spaceship had collided with a windmill and exploded, and that the pilot had been buried in the town's cemetery. The Times-Herald said it located published reports of the crash that said the body of the pilot was dismembered. However, enough remains were picked up to determine it was not that of an inhabitant of this world. It was given a Christian burial. According to reports, the crash was the climax to a rash of hundreds of UFO sightings in North Texas cities and towns from April 14th through April 27, 1897. The April 1897 edition of the Times-Herald quoted Dallas residents as saying that crowds had formed to watch a cigar-shaped object with blinking lights hover over the city and then disappear at high speed. During nightly visitations of the aerial monster over Dallas, residents held lawn parties to sit outside and wait for its appearance, the Times-Herald reported. The day of the crash, the UFO was sighted over Aurora at about 4 a.m. according to reports. It collided with Judge J.S. Proctor's windmill and went to pieces. T.J. Weems, U.S. Signal Services officer stationed in Aurora, was quoted as saying the pilot carried some papers that appeared to be a log of his travels written in some unknown hieroglyphics. The pilot was buried at noon. Pieces of the spaceship, scattered all over the area, were taken by sightseers. Hughes said his searches have located the cemetery and remains of the windmill and other landmarks. Too narrow hunt for UFO pilot's grave. From the Times-Herald, May 29, 1973. Two lifelong Aurora residents have given the Times-Herald confidential information pinpointing the grave of an unidentified flying object pilot reportedly buried in the Aurora Cemetery after the crash of his spaceship in the small Wise County community, April 19, 1897. The crash site at a well on the Brawley Oats property in Aurora and the small country cemetery in North Texas have been the scene of intensive scientific investigation by reporters and ufologists from several UFO research organizations since mid-March. The information given Monday by the pair of residents, who asked not to be identified, led reporters to a remote area of the old cemetery where the grave and certain landmarks associated with it were found exactly as described. The information, the residents said, had been relayed to them from a nearby community by a resident who was almost 90 years old and seriously ill with a heart condition and high blood pressure. The resident said he could lead us right to the grave if it were physically possible for him to make the trip, for he has visited it many times, the Aurora people said. The Times-Herald is withholding detailed information on the grave and the landmarks surrounding it to protect the grave from damage by vandals and souvenir seekers. They already have broken off and carted away a number of old handmade marker stones. When checked with metal detectors by Earl F. Watts, a Dallas astronomer and investigator for the Midwest Unidentified Flying Object Network, MUFON, the grave gave off the same decibel signals as unidentifiable pieces of light metals found at the crash site at the well. The evidence linking this grave and the crash site seemed too solid to be coincidental, Watts said. Everything checks out exactly as described. On Monday, reporters working with Watts recovered at least 2 more types of extreme lightweight and strong unidentified metal near the old well, which has been sealed since 1945. One is magnetic and the other non-magnetic, Watts said, and both are so hard you can barely make a mark in them with a carbon steel or diamond point. The samples were rushed to the laboratories of one of the nation's largest aircraft companies, where complete analysis will be made. A report on the analysis is expected in about a week. If the report indicates some of the metals are made of materials not known on Earth or are any alloy known to have been developed since the date of the crash, a court asking exhumation of the pilot's remains will be sought by Wise County Court. An injunction preventing digging was issued last week in Wise County Court after Hayden Hughes, director of the International UFO Bureau in Oklahoma City, told a radio network he was going to exhume the body immediately. Texas woman recalls UFO crash in 1897. From the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, May 31, 1973. A 91-year-old woman says she remembers the night on April 19, 1897, her parents went to the spot where an airship crashed into Judge Proctor's well, and the pilot was buried in the community cemetery. That crash certainly caused a lot of excitement, Mary Evans said Wednesday. Many people were frightened. They didn't know what to expect. That was years before we had any regular airplanes or other kinds of airships. The Wright brothers made their historic flight at Kitty Hawk in December 1903. This has led some to believe that the airship that crashed at the Texas well was from another planet, if indeed such an airship exists. Mrs. Evans has no doubts. I was only about 15 at the time and had all but forgotten the incident until it appeared in the newspapers recently, she said. We were living in Aurora at the time, but my mother and father wouldn't let me go with them when they went up to the crash site at Judge Proctor's well. When they returned home, they told me how the airship had exploded. The pilot was torn up and killed in the crash. The men of the town who gathered his remains said he was a small man and buried him the same day in Aurora Cemetery. The UFO advocates have combed the Aurora area with metal detectors, radiation meters, and other scientific devices in recent months in an attempt to get some tangible evidence to file with a court order to exhume the body of the alleged pilot. Pieces of metal taken from the area have been sent to various scientists and metallurgists for examination. A physics professor at North Texas State University tested one piece and said it was unusual because it was 75% iron but lacked many of the properties common to iron. The professor, Dr. Tom Gray, said it was not magnetic and was shiny and soft instead of dull and brittle like iron. I don't mean by my comments to indicate whether this is of terrestrial or extraterrestrial origin, but that the physics of that much iron being not magnetic stirs my curiosity as a scientist, he said. If it proves to be a rather strange beast, then a great deal more study will have to be done on it. Right now we can only make suppositions. We cannot draw any conclusions. Exhumation of 1897 UFO pilot body asked. From the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, May 24, 1973. An International UFO Bureau spokesman said Wednesday the organization would go to court if necessary to open a grave in a small North Texas cemetery it says contains the body of an 1897 astronaut who was not an inhabitant of this world. Hayden Hughes, director of the Unidentified Flying Object Investigative Group, said legal means already have begun for exhuming the body. After checking the grave with metal detectors and gathering facts for 3 months, we are as certain as we can be at this point he was the pilot of a UFO which reportedly exploded atop a well on Judge J.S. Proctor's place, April 19, 1897, Hughes said. He was not an inhabitant of this world. An intense search for pieces of the 19th century spaceship have been underway since March by the UFO Bureau team, but the story of the alleged explosion of the UFO has been a legend in Wise County for more than half a century. It was first reported in Dallas and Fort Worth newspapers a few days after the alleged explosion, and reporters quoted witnesses that they had also buried the astronaut who died inside the ship. Most residents around the small hamlet about 60 miles northwest of Fort Worth claim the story was always a hoax. Hughes doesn't believe so. We hope by exhuming the body, we may obtain some of the same type of unusual metal from either his clothing or bones that was unearthed at the well site when we checked it with metal detectors, he said. Aurora UFO site probe near climax. From the Dallas Times-Herald, June 3, 1973. Exhaustive efforts since mid-March to confirm reports that a UFO crashed at a well site in Aurora, Texas, April 19, 1897 were at a crucial stage Sunday. Investigators from MUFON and Dallas Times-Herald reporters have combed the area with scientific instruments in an effort to locate pieces of the reported spaceship and have pinpointed a grave in Aurora Cemetery in which the pilot may be buried. And scientists in laboratories at North Texas State University, one of the country's major aircraft companies, and the National Research Council in Ottawa, Canada, are in the midst of running tests to identify metal samples supplied by investigators. NTSU conducted its search on its own. We are in the waiting period to see if all of our efforts pay off, a MUFON spokesman told the Times-Herald. More intensive investigation has gone into this case because it is the only reported case of a UFO crash in which the pilot's body was allegedly recovered and buried. The scientists report 1 out of 7 pieces of metal is highly unusual in its properties. And, he emphasized, even if analysis shows this metal is known on Earth, it is not conclusive proof that it did not come from space or that it was not developed and duplicated on Earth by man at a later date. Meteorites composed largely of iron, zinc, and traces of other metals, some known and unknown, are constantly bombarding us from space, Dr. Tom Gray, NTSU physicist, said. And we don't know where they come from. It is the physics of this puzzling piece of metal we recovered at the crash site that stirs my curiosity as a scientist. I would like to see if we can duplicate it. The first in-depth, comprehensive metal analysis reports are expected to be completed Monday night. Although the story has been branded a hoax and practical joke for years in North Texas, the investigation has found 3 aged persons who have given detailed stories of the crash, recovery, and burial of the pilot. In addition, articles from April 14th through April 27th, 1897, published in Dallas and Fort Worth newspapers, list hundreds of sightings of airships matching the description of the one which reportedly crashed in Aurora. We have no plans to exhume the pilot's body at this time, the MUFON spokesman said. However, if scientific evidence shows close relationship between the metal readings from the crash site and the grave are valid, we shall consider asking Wise County District Court to issue an exhumation order allowing it to be performed by experts in accordance with instructions of the court. There is no intention of turning this into a circus. It is a scientific investigation and will be kept on that plan with all respect for the cemetery, its other occupants, and the people of the community. Proof: UFOs are above the law. From the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, November 15, 1973. Brownsville, Texas. Cameron County Sheriff's Deputy Eddie Gonzalez and Frank Lopez reported yesterday that the car in which they were driving was trailed for 20 miles by an unidentified flying object. Other law enforcement agencies, including the Harlingen and San Benito police, responded to excited radio calls by Gonzalez and also reported they saw the object. Gonzalez and Lopez said they were driving 3 prisoners to the state penitentiary in Huntsville when the lighted object appeared over their station wagon in North Brownsville early yesterday morning. Gonzalez said the object had a red light at the top and a yellow one at the bottom that made it difficult to discern its shape. The deputy said the UFO appeared to be 50 to 60 feet above the vehicle at all times and was completely silent. Harlingen and San Benito police units met the Cameron County car near San Benito, and officers said they watched the UFO hover for 30 minutes, then zoom straight up into the sky and disappear. Mystery light spotted again in El Paso skies. From the El Paso Times, September 6, 1973. Another What's It was reported over the general El Paso area Wednesday night and is presenting quite a mystery. Even experienced pilots said it left a trail and appeared to be a comet. 2 reports, one from a pilot over the Salt Flats area 90 miles east of El Paso, and one from a truck driver near Sierra Blanca, told the FAA's El Paso Flight Service office they saw the vehicle suddenly flare brightly and then disappear, perhaps crashing, in the vicinity of Van Horn. Both reports indicated the time at 10:15 p.m. It was first sighted west of El Paso about 9:45 p.m., a full half hour of something unusual in the air. Reports from as far as Fabens and Horizon City described the object appearing as a bright light to most witnesses that traveled on a generally northwest to southeast course. 2 witnesses in northwest El Paso, including a veteran police sergeant, saw it approaching from the west-northwest. At first it appeared to be a bright star fairly low on the horizon, but no star of that magnitude exists at this time of year in that particular direction. A few minutes later, the star had moved to a position due north of El Paso's west side and was continuing in an easterly direction, appearing to be not much higher than the mountains as it passed them and then turned to the southeast. These witnesses saw no trail or tail, but both agreed it was an extremely bright object. During the past weekend, there were reports of a similar object flying in the Clint and Fabens area. One witness in the lower valley Wednesday night said it appeared to him the object may have landed in the Clint area, but there were no reports that it did. Witnesses claim UFO lands in Calvert area. From the Texas Tribune, December 20th, 1973. After weeks of strange objects flashing and darting about in the nighttime skies over Calvert, terrifying women on the highways in surrounding areas, and strange reports of robot men seen in the fog near the Little Brazos River, one of the silvery, egg-shaped craft finally landed on December 11th, about 1/4 mile north of Calvert on the Old Knapp Place. 4-year-old Brent Smitherman was the first to spot the strange visitor in the pasture near the Smitherman home. At about 6:30 in the evening, Mrs. Nita Smitherman was driving home on the Old Hearn Road, which runs alongside the railroad tracks north of Calvert, when her grandson suddenly began to talk about the spaceman out in our pasture. She admits she thought him reeling off a childish fantasy, but he insisted that there was a spaceship in their pasture near the calf pen. And sure enough, said Mrs. Smitherman, when I finally did look where he was pointing, there was this strange object hovering right over our pasture, blinking very bright red lights. Mrs. Smitherman said she could not get a clear outline of the craft itself, but that a tower-type structure was visible on top and a very intensely bright light was atop this structure. At each end of the craft, which seemed oval to her, there were long antennae that seemed to gather and throw the red lights in a pulsating motion. The light on the west end was huge, she said, and it glowed maroon-like. She pulled into her yard and went inside to tell her husband. She moved slowly because of a broken foot. When he came outside and neared the fence, it made a whooshing sound and took off faster than the eye could follow. It settled down again in the distance behind a row of trees. The possible site of the landing was inspected Sunday afternoon by Tommy and Linda Bland, Jody Barton, Alfred Konitz, and Jack and Gracia Unger. Tommy Brand, the deputy director of International UFO, the private nonprofit research firm doing the lion's share of research on UFOs worldwide, and his wife Linda, have been in Calvert on 3 occasions to check out reports of UFO sightings. On Sunday, they returned to inspect the field where the UFO landed and to take soil samples for analysis and testing, and to check for physical disturbances. According to Brand, only one other area has experienced as many verified sightings as the Calvert Rosebud area, and that was in Piedmont, Kansas, several years ago. Latest UFO reports suggest little green men on prowl. From the Louisville Leader, November 7th, 1973. Mysterious lights, gold domes, and red triangles sighted in local skies may be more than Louisville's growing neon sign tangle. As many citizens claim to have sighted UFOs, some valid questions arise. If you're one of the "I'll have to see it to believe it" people, you may be convinced some night. The unknown objects may be more than a vision. They may be watching us as we watch them. Several LHS students have reported sightings of UFOs. Coach Tommy Shields and most of the offensive linemen saw a noiseless object after their weekly meeting October 23rd. Rudy Durham and Dave Hamby had left the meeting to go to the store when they saw a saucer-shaped light. Rudy said they watched the object until it looked like a triangular formation of lights with a red light in the back. Dave said when returning to Coach Shields' house on State Highway 407, the object flew closer, was orange and red, and seemed to follow the car. Both ran into the house and told their teammates to look into the sky. Wesley Wingett and Mike Gooch went out to see white dots move across the sky and swoosh up into the stars. Coach Shields claims he saw the bright light that night and close to the same place the next night. The most amazing account, perhaps, was told by Norman Hearn, Wednesday at 9:10 p.m. Norman was driving his '65 Ford pickup by the golf course when his truck started shaking, the lights went out, radio went off, and the motor stopped. A 12-foot-tall, saucer-shaped object came over my truck and hovered in front of me for a while, said Norman. He saw a gold medallion with writing on the UFO. Then he reports that it flew over the lake and took off. As he watched it disappear, the engine, lights, and radio came on as before. Although many stories have been circulating recently, Federal Aviation Administration spokesman said nothing unusual had been sighted. Louisville Police Captain William Ellsby said few calls have been made to the station concerning UFOs, and no patrolmen have filed reports of sightings. I believe in the possibility, even though I've never seen one, said LHS science teacher Greg Veal. He said some of the stories seem a little unbelievable since there are always misconceptions. He added that there are many natural phenomena that could be misconstrued, which in reality are natural happenings. Michael DeBolt, also science instructor, feels the stories could be a gimmick people use to gain attention. Sometimes I think UFO stands for uneventful, foolish objects. UFO stalks car, says Texans. From the Dallas Times-Herald, November 20th, 1973. Faye Seeley and Faye Hildeman thought the bright object shining in the darkness of the central Texas sky was a star. Then it started following them. It was so quick I didn't see it move, Mrs. Seeley said Monday. It was on the left side of the car 1 second and on the right side the next. The women were returning to their homes in Rosebud with their children Sunday night from Buffalo, Texas, where they had left their husbands deer hunting. They first saw the triangular-shaped object about 8:15 p.m. and thought it was a star that alternately brightened and dimmed. Then it began to pace their car. It came down to about 2 car lengths off the ground and just sat there like it was daring us to come closer, Mrs. Seeley said. Mrs. Seeley, who was driving the car, said she turned the car around and sped off in the opposite direction. It rose back into the air a little distance and began to follow, Mrs. Heilman said. It came quickly for a while as if trying to catch up, but when we saw the lights of a car up ahead, it just slowed and followed. When we caught up with the other car, the light from the object dimmed and it went straight up into the air and out of sight. UFO sighted on FM 413, followed car for miles. From the Rosebud News, November 22nd, 1973. It chased us and we were scared, and our boys were scared. So said Mrs. Faye Seeley and Mrs. Faye Heilman Sunday night when they saw an unidentified flying object on FM 413 between Kendrick Ranch entrance and the Brazos River. This is just too much. I know that people are just going to laugh at us. It is something you read in the papers and laugh at yourself, but our children saw it too, and we are all still scared, told Mrs. Seeley late Sunday night. Mrs. Seeley, her sons Richard 13 and Russell 8, Mrs. Heilman and her son Richard 7, were returning to Rosebud from a deer hunt near Buffalo. They were traveling on State Highway 14 and were nearing Bremen when Mrs. Heilman noticed a bright, then dimming light low in the sky. I said nothing about it, because I thought it was a helicopter. I first told the others about it when we were on the highway between Bremen and State 6. They all began watching it then. It was when we turned from State 6 onto FM 1373 that we really noticed that something was really happening. Because first it was on our left side, then quicker than the eye could see, it was on our right, she said. Richard Seeley told, "It was following us, but I did not say much about it. I knew that my mama was worried, and I was scared myself." They kept driving west on FM 413 and saw that the thing dimmed and got brighter and seemed to disappear. But that when they neared the Brazos River Bridge, it appeared again, and they slowed down. We were near the Kendrick Ranch house alongside the highway, and I saw that thing was going to land in front of us on the highway. It never did land, but it was about treetop high and was blocking my way, so I stopped. No, I did not stop, I don't think. I whirled that car around and got out of there fast as I could, and it still followed us and stayed behind us, and I was driving as fast as I could, but it was still right there all the time. But when we got to Reagan and got back on State 6, we were behind another car, and the thing just seemed to lift up and disappear, so related Mrs. Seeley. Richard Seeley was asked what the UFO looked like to him, and he said, "I don't know, but it was pointed on top." Mrs. Heilman told that it was, I guess, sort of round, and had a point on the top and two on the bottom. When it would be bright, I could not see the points too well, but when it got dimmer, you could see the points real well, and there were the shadows it cast when it was just over the highway. I just wish that Cecil Tiny would have been with us, because he will never believe this. A call was made to Mrs. Seeley Monday morning, and she tells, "I just did not believe that the thing would have let me drive on any further. I did not sleep last night, and may not sleep any tonight. I just know that the thing would not have let me go by." Were there others that saw this UFO? Well, maybe. 4 of us Kilgores were riding back along the same highway about 8 p.m. Sunday, and the question was asked, "Is that the comet?" Off toward the south was a star-like object that would glow a bit, then get dimmer, but it seemed a long way off. On Sunday evening, Mrs. Weldon Walston told of seeing a bright light to the south of their home near Powers Chapel. On Sunday night, Homer Seeley told that he noticed a brightness outside their home in the Pleasant Grove community. Mrs. Myrtle Scarborough told of seeing something bright crossing the sky from south to east at Wilderville store. This has been seen a couple of times in the past few days. A motorist told Marlin police recently about such an object following his car along State 6 from the Reagan to Marlin route. Is there such a thing? Some say yes. I believe it. Others just laugh when told the story. There are scientists who say that there are such things, and there are supposedly photos taken of such objects in the sky. Should anyone in the area see another such UFO, they are urged to contact this writer in Rosebud at any time of the day or night. Aurora mystery grave to be probed by radar. From the Dallas Times-Herald, December 27, 1973. Ufologists said Thursday they expect soon to be able to examine the grave of an unidentified flying object pilot reportedly buried in an Aurora, Texas cemetery after an alleged 1897 crash. Walter Andrus, executive director of the Mutual Unidentified Flying Object Network, whose investigators have been working for 9 months to unravel the 73-year-old mystery, told the Times-Herald. While we have been prevented from exhuming the body of the reported pilot by refusal of the Aurora Cemetery Board, we believe we can check out the grave's contents scientifically by radar without disturbing the grave or cemetery in any way. Andrus said MUFON has been in contact with the Calvert Corp of Buffalo, New York, which now is working on a commercial version of a subsurface radar. He said the device has been successfully used by the Army at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, to detect buried plastic explosives, buried dogs, pipes, and enduits through several feet of concrete and soil. Ever since we began an investigation into a reported crash of a UFO and recovery of the pilot's body in Aurora last March, we have made substantial progress, Andrus said. It has been our goal solely to prove or disprove the story told all these years, he said. Andrus asserted the MUFON Times-Herald investigation produced enough scientific evidence to warrant an attempt to open the alleged pilot's grave. The crash was reported from Aurora on April 19, 1897. This case especially is important because it is the only known instance where a UFO crash was reported and the pilot's body recovered and buried, Andrus said. Our information has led us to the point where only identification of the contents of the grave will settle the controversy once and for all. Andrus said he could see no reason for the Aurora Cemetery Board to refuse radar examination of the grave. Robert Kell, an official of the Calvert Corp, said the company is building the commercial version of the subsurface radar and expects it to be completed in 2 to 3 months. He also told the Times-Herald that Calvert would be very interested in checking out the alleged pilot's grave in Aurora. Are UFOs taking a look at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport? From the Dallas Times-Herald, May 12, 1974. Are unidentified flying objects and their crews maintaining regular observation vigils on a hill along the west boundaries of the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport at night? 5 witnesses from 3 families have told airport officials and Federal Aviation Administration officers they believe something like that may be happening. All report numerous UFO takeoff sightings and extremely low-level flights westward away from the airport during the hours of darkness between 9 p.m. and 1 a.m. The flights occurred during the last 6 to 8 months, they said. Mrs. Sandra Hodgson, 36, a medical technician employed at Irving Community Hospital, who lives in an apartment complex at 2805 Mustang Drive, Grapevine, told the Times-Herald she has had numerous sightings en route home from work. After sighting the lights, which seem to travel and hover at just about treetop level on several nights, I reported the UFOs to the FAA control tower at DFW Airport, and to George Burlage at the FAA's Fort Worth Regional Headquarters, she said. They advised me to try and get a picture of one, so I got out my camera on Thursday night, and when a UFO appeared east of our apartment building about 200 yards away, I took a shot. Mrs. Hodgson's picture shows a small, jagged, twisting yellow light against a pitch-black sky. No size or shape of the object is discernible. However, it appears to be moving west from left to right in the classic patterns of the UFO flights away from DFW Airport. Fascinated by the phenomenon, Mrs. Hodgson said one night last week while watching the unusual lights, she and a friend, Debbie Carter, 17, who lives in the same apartment complex, got in their car and followed it. It stopped down a small road over a patch of woods about a mile east of us and beamed a strong white searchlight down into a clearing, she said. When we got there, the light was still hovering in the air over a clearing where a Mexican-American family live in a converted construction building. Mrs. Hodgson and Miss Carter said they found Mr. and Mrs. Lucio Perez and his brother, Leonard Perez, standing in the clearing looking up at the light. Perez, who does not speak English, took Mrs. Hodgson's photo of the UFO and pointed to the same place in the sky where she and Miss Carter said they saw the object with its searchlights hovering directly over them. He also indicated with gestures that the UFO lights appeared to be coming from the field at the edge of the airport. The point they indicated where the lights took off is on a hill providing a panoramic view of the entire airport. Reporters who trudged through high grass and weeds to the fence line reported they found a circular area of grass and weeds about 20 feet in diameter twisted down in a clockwise pattern. It appeared something had set down on them. Mrs. Hodgson, who said many of her neighbors have seen the lights but do not like to discuss them, believes occupants of the UFOs are attempting to contact humans on Earth. But judging from accounts of the way people have acted towards UFOs and their occupants and other sightings elsewhere, I guess they feel we are hostile, she said. But I'd give anything to contact them. The only noise Mrs. Hodgson said she has heard during a sighting was a hum similar to that of an electric generator. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you liked it. Let me know in the comments below what state you'd like to see me cover next. If you have your own scary story or close encounter to share, you can either send it in the comments, post on my subreddit, r/ihaveaspookystory, or send it to my Gmail, pinkpossiblystories@gmail.com. Maybe your story will be in a future video. Good night, sleep tight, and don't let the shadows bite.